Now at 5, temporarily blocked. A federal judge pauses the Trump administration's freeze on federal grants and loans.
And recommitting support to the immigrant community, the message from San Francisco city leaders. KRON4 News at 5 starts now.
Now, live from the Bay Area's local news station, this is KRON4 News at 5.
And thanks so much for joining us at KRON4 News at 5. I'm Vicki Liviakis.
I'm Grant Lotus. A federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from taking the unprecedented step of stopping all federal grant and loan programs. The freeze would have immediately affected billions of dollars that states and local communities rely on for everything from health care to education to housing assistance and disaster relief. Today's ruling puts that freeze in place until Monday. If it goes into effect, it would eliminate foreign aid and support for nonprofits. The administration calls the potential freeze temporary, pending a government-wide review. The Trump administration is wholeheartedly defending this policy.
It is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means no more funding for the Green New scam that has cost American taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. It means no more funding for transgenderism.
The new press secretary says the federal aid freeze would not affect people directly receiving money. That would mean it doesn't affect Medicare, Social Security, or SNAP, the Federal Food Assistance Program. Meanwhile, lawmakers are scrambling to figure out what this funding freeze would actually mean for their constituents. California Attorney General Rob Bonta has joined a group of nonprofits in filing a lawsuit, and more lawsuits are expected.
So we've got team coverage of all of that tonight. KRON4's Rob Nesbitt has more on how the freeze could affect the Bay Area housing crisis. But first, let's go to KRON4's Dan Kerman, live for us in the newsroom. Dan, what is the latest?
Well, it's been a day of chaos with many not knowing if their program or their funds would be affected. And then at 2 p.m., everything came to a stop, as you said, when a federal judge put the brakes on all of this. Tonight, we get reaction from the Trump plan from Bay Area legislators and legal experts.
Welcome to another 4 years of total chaos and confusion. We've saw this movie before.
East Bay Democratic Congressman John Garamendi says President Trump's attempt to freeze federal assistance while the administration reviews whether the spending is in line with the president's ideology is part of President Trump's standard playbook. And while the freeze is now on hold, if lifted, its implications are severe.
For the San Francisco Bay Area, it's many of the healthcare programs, the research programs at UCSF and UC Berkeley and beyond are frozen. We know that Head Start is maybe not frozen. We know that the supplemental food programs, the WIC programs, infant and children programs, frozen. The energy conservation programs in the Inflation Reduction Act, the climate crisis legislation, frozen. Many of the highway projects, frozen.
What is clear to Democrats in Congress is the president's actions are outside the law.
President Trump can review all he wants. And if he has recommendations, he can come to the Congress to make changes, propose changes to the law. But what he's doing here is wrong and illegal.
The first lawsuit filed by the National Council of Nonprofits has already led a federal judge to block the Trump administration's freeze, at least until Monday, when lawyers on both sides will present arguments.
A strong constitutional argument that the president is acting unconstitutionally is that the president has a constitutional duty to faithfully execute the laws, and that it is Congress and the Constitution that is given the power to raise money through taxes and to spend money, not the president. That's a very strong argument, and that is what Congress has relied on passing a statute in 1974 trying to control and prohibit the impoundment of funds by the president. President Trump's argument will be, and this will be reminiscent of the immunity case that we saw last summer, it will be the president has to have the constitutional authority to act vigorously and energetically and quickly. And this was an absolute necessity to freeze these funds because I got a mandate in the election.
Legal experts say the president is unlikely to win this lawsuit and may face others ahead.
I think President Trump is risking a First Amendment challenge and a very serious First Amendment issue if he withholds certain spending based only on the ideological views of the programs or the people administering those programs or the people receiving those monies. For example, if he says, we will not allocate money for any transgender programs, but we will for all sorts of other genderized programs, I think he's subject to all sorts of lawsuits, not for impounding the funds, but for discrimination.
Now, again, this freeze on the president's freeze is in place until Monday afternoon. Grant, Vicki?
All right, Dan, many affordable housing projects rely on federal funding to just break ground.
And KRON4's Rob Nesbitt joins us now with the effects a freeze would have on the housing crisis here locally. Rob?
Grant and Vicki, the funding for affordable housing was described to me today as a quilt. Different patches coming from different donors, and the federal government is one of them. Homes would not be built without federal help.
We could really see some long-term, very dramatic impacts on homelessness because of this decision being made.
Tuesday was a stressful day for Jennifer Friedenbach. The executive director of the Coalition on Homelessness in San Francisco paid close attention to announcements from the White House as the Trump administration announced a freeze on federal grants and loans, money Friedenbach says is essential to building affordable housing.
A lot of the projects are already in the pipeline. And so even though the money hasn't been released, this could really sideline some housing that is being planned for. So that's pretty frightening.
In San Francisco, the Council Community Housing Organizations manages affordable housing and helps residents at risk of being displaced. John Avalos with the council doesn't know how that work can continue without federal assistance.
We're worried about, keeping staff. We're worried about supporting our residents. Federal dollars also support our supportive housing services that help people to change their lives, to address behavioral health issues, psychological, emotional issues, and addiction.
Relieved to hear that a federal judge temporarily blocked the freeze on federal grants and loans the same day it was announced.
We expect that there'll be a lot of work in the courts.
It's not just affordable housing that would be impacted if a freeze goes into effect, but also money for Section 8 housing. According to Friedenbach, more than 600,000 people in California rely on housing vouchers to pay their rent, saying the new administration is out of touch with the needs of those experiencing poverty.
Their funding base for their campaigns is people with a lot of money. They're catering to their perspectives that don't really understand poverty and don't understand how important this kind of assistance is to folks.
Another concern with the freeze announcement that Friedenbach has is that state and city agencies can add federal programs to the list of things to cut if they choose to. Reporting live in studio, I'm Rob Nesbitt, KRON4 News.
Rob, thank you. And after 1 week in office here, the Trump administration is saying ICE arrests are well above the average from last year. They point to yesterday, Monday, which saw almost 4 times, they say, the amount of ICE arrests compared to the average day last year under the Biden administration. Almost 1,200 people were arrested yesterday. President Trump directed the DEA, the ATF, U.S. Marshals, and FBI to assist in the raids. He says they'll prioritize violent criminals, but that doesn't mean other undocumented immigrants are safe. The House Oversight Committee chairman also says he's opened an investigation into sanctuary cities.
In just the past few days, there have been reports of ICE agents operating around the Bay Area, including in San Jose and San Francisco.
KRON4's Jack Molma joins us live in San Jose, where there is a growing student-led protest against immigration enforcement there. Jack, I see you're on the move. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. I'm walking backwards as quickly as I can here because this group is moving rather swiftly. Like I said earlier, this crowd is about 400 to 500 strong at its peak. More than half of these people are students from Overfelt High School. That is a high school in the heart of Eastside San Jose, part of Eastside Union High School District. I'll let you take a quick look here right behind me of what's going on. This is a sea of mostly students that are walking, and so they were actually at La Placita Tropicana. That is off the corner of Storia and King, and just 3 days ago, that's where ICE agents were confirmed by the mayor of San Jose to be doing some kind of operation, some kind of enforcement. As the mayor did tell us earlier in the week, they were looking for maybe just 1 or 2 specific people, just really focusing on that, on people who are allegedly criminals. So But these students here say, nevertheless, they are scared with the increasing rhetoric around immigration with the new President Trump administration in office. So this is really a student-led protest here from Overfelt High School. And now, as you can see, we're walking along with these students back to Overfelt High School, back to where this protest really started as a high school walkout earlier in the day. We did have a chance to catch up with some protesters and talk about why it was important for them to show up today. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
I'm out here to support my people. I'm not okay with what ICE is doing. You know, even though if it was allegedly not true that ICE was here, they're instilling fear into our people, and I feel nobody deserves that trauma.
Yeah, so this protest has been going on for close to 3 hours now, still going very strong. Many of these protesters did end up leaving La Placita Tropicana off the corner of Story and King and heading back to Overfelt High School, where this protest first began. Again, at its peak, probably about 400 to 500 people. A student with Overfelt High School did tell me just within the last hour that they are planning on hosting more protests coming up on Saturday back at this location and on Sunday near Andrew Hill High School, also another Eastside San Jose high school that serves a very vital population of people here in San Jose, here in the East Side. Reporting in San Jose, Jack Mulmet, KRON4 News.
All right, Jack, thank you for that.
Meanwhile, fearing deportations and raids could increase in the months and years ahead, San Francisco leaders are showing their support for immigrant communities and reaffirming that San Francisco remains a sanctuary city.
In San Francisco, we value our immigrant communities.
This city and this police department remains steadfast in its commitment to being a sanctuary city. That is who we are, and that is who we will always be.
We in San Francisco will not be scared, and we will come together as an entire city and as an entire community.
San Francisco has also opened a new online hub for immigrants. It launched yesterday as an online resource, they say, for asylees, refugees, and their service providers. The hub is intended to connect those in need with services, resources, and events.
And stay with KRON4 on air and online as we learn more about these ICE raids here in the Bay Area. Scan the QR code on your screen to find headlines, the Bay Area response, and an immigrant resources hub. That's at KRON4.com.
Still ahead, more trouble for embattled San Mateo County Sheriff Christina Corpus, the latest city to go against her.
Plus, Alameda County set to have a new district attorney. We are live from the Board of Supervisors meeting.
And a standoff in San Francisco leads to the death of a person. KRON4 Stephanie Rothman joins us with details. What police are saying next.